It's those doing the wrong thing driving our record case numbers. Among the most concerning cases, a COVID patient who's tonight on the run from a hotspot. Police and health authorities have issued an urgent appeal.
Anthony Karam knows he is COVID positive when he steps into this public lift. Already breaking so many rules, he doesn't bother to cover his mouth as he sneezes and splutters. The 27-year-old is still infectious but has gone missing from his Wentworth Point apartment. A warrant now issued for his arrest.
This 27-year-old chap, who apparently has expressed the view that he doesn't care less whether he spreads the virus, is one example of the worst of the worst.
There's little sympathy for anyone ignoring the health orders, even this group of teenagers caught partying after dark at the bottom of the North Bondi Cliffs. Herded to higher ground by Polaire's spotlight and speaker, the 8 boys were placed in handcuffs and left to explain a $1,000 fine to mum.
681 penalty infringement notices issued in the last 24 hours. More than 400 of those notices were again for people being outside of their home without a reasonable excuse.
Sideline Sharks player Josh Dugan denies lying to police when he was found a long way from Sydney. The 31-year-old stopped at 11:30 last night in Lithgow, where he allegedly told officers he was moving to the area and feeding animals before admitting to visiting a friend. He and a passenger turned back to Sydney, only to be pulled over a second time, travelling in the wrong direction. The NRL is investigating and criminal charges could be laid. It's getting harder and harder to hide if you're doing the wrong thing, especially in the construction industry, a crackdown following on from the recent shutdown. Workers sent home if their paperwork isn't in check.
It is a struggle, but it's it's just what has to be done. Like, nobody likes telling people to go home. They've all got families to feed.
Our cameras rolling on another random blitz in Marsden Park.
Authorising me under the Public Health Act.
Inspectors have asked these tradesmen to show proof of their QR check-in as well as identification and vaccination records. One of the men here is from Campsie and he doesn't have his documentation, so he's being sent home. He may lose a chunk of his pay too if officers follow through with a fine. Tiffany Genders, 9 News.
For breaking news, turn to Peter Overton, nightly at 6.
Wow.
Are we watching Black Mirror or is this an actual news segment?
Yeah, it feels like Black Mirror to me.
It literally feels like you're watching like those World War II documentaries where the Gestapo are going door to door checking people's papers and stuff. That has the same feeling of this, but this is like a news segment from a week ago in Australia. This is real life.
Yeah. And the excuses are so weak. We don't want to have to do it, but we just have to. We just have to do it. No, you don't. No, you don't. There's no evidence that backs the need for you to be doing this right now.
I know, to be tackling people. Some of the videos coming off of Twitter and people are showing. I mean, there are people getting tear gassed and rubber bullets being sent at protesters right now.
Right.
Who are going out against this. The police are firing rubber bullets. We were talking about this earlier before the show started. I was like, how can these police officers in Australia do this? Like, how can they feel righteous in doing this to people and putting these draconian measures on people and shooting them with rubber bullets for coming out and showing that they are against these lockdowns?
It's because a lot of them have also been brainwashed.
Yeah.
And when you're brainwashed into this caricature of people who refuse to get vaccinated, people who refuse to wear masks, people now who choose to go outside of their house don't care about me. They don't care that I live. They're so incompassionate. So then they're thinking these people aren't even really, it's dehumanizing. It's dehumanizing. What would you care that you just beat somebody to the ground because they were unvaccinated? They didn't care about you. And that's the sort of rhetoric that they're pushing right now. That's why neighbors are ratting out neighbors. That's why police officers are beating people down in the streets. That's why people are reporting on others for not being vaccinated and leaving their homes. It's this distasteful rhetoric that is painting people as they don't care about others.
Yeah, the rhetoric is, they boil it down to like, you need to be doing the right thing. The right thing. They keep saying that in there. Like, this person was doing this. They even said like, this is the worst of the worst. A guy for like going outside of his house while he's sick. That is worse. Not criminals and murderers and rapists, but this guy is the scum of the earth. And it just shows how warped this this past year or two has literally broken our brains. You watched that mass psychosis video a week or two ago, and it's like our entire worldview has been reduced to the single variable of a disease with a 99.9% survival rate. And that has induced this we've had a psychotic break where no one can think rationally or rationally weigh the risks appropriately, or what's a reasonable amount of, like, why don't we reduce every speed limit around the country to 30 miles an hour instead of 60, because the death rate's going to be lower if we do that. Like, you know, like it's because we can assess risks and we can figure out like what's worth, what rules are worth having and which ones aren't. That's part of living in a civil society. But now it's like they've just up and decided that there can be no COVID in Australia. And it's, by the way, good luck with that, with a virus that's endemic to every other country on earth by now, and like trying to keep it out of your island, that's ever going to happen. And how far are you willing to go to enforce this? And you'll never stamp it out completely. So it's just, but the reductive thinking of we only need to think about one variable in life around this thing. It's the same thing that the left did with like racism last year. It was like everything evolves around racism, and everything in the world is to be understood around how it relates to race. It's simplistic reductive thinking. The real life is more complicated than that.
Yeah, you know what's worse than COVID-19 is being sent home and not being able to provide for your wife and children. That's a horrible, horrible reality to have to grapple with.
The guy wasn't even sick. He just didn't have his paperwork with him.
Right.
Like, the guy's not even sick, but he can't work and provide for himself or his family because he's now going to get fined, and he wasn't even sick.
Yeah, and it's like, what, three levels of identification she mentioned: his QR, his vaccination status, and personal identification. Insane. Blows my mind that they are allowing people to do this in their country. That, it's just
I keep
monstrous.
talking to people in Australia. People in Australia are messaging me all over social media, and they're like, yeah, this stuff that's happening, it's true. This isn't American media on Twitter blowing these things up and making a huge deal about it. Like, this is legit. This is what they're really going through. I've talked to lots of people who are saying this. We're hoping tomorrow to get a journalist on the show tomorrow from Australia who's going to talk to us about this stuff. Or maybe that's Wednesday, not sure. One of these 2 days.
Right.
To come in and talk about this stuff and give you guys a real perspective. But, man, you see what you have now in America, and you should be just thanking your lucky stars that you live in this country right now. Even as things get worse here in America, even as things get worse, still be lucky. But this is what happens when people don't actually stand up and do anything.